The big three.
Number 3.
So you don't
I
think
feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
It's the worst. Follow-up questions. Democratic politics of incompetence, from California governor frontrunner to the New Jersey governor race. We see Dems in the lead, but their flaws are jaw-dropping. America deserves better. Is it time for people to forget about their party?
Number 2.
How will you decide which workers get back pay and which workers do not?
Well, we're going to see most of them are going to get back pay, and we're going to try and make sure of that. But some of them are being hurt very badly by the Democrats, and they therefore won't qualify.
On the here we go. Shutdown on day 9, and tensions are exploding on both sides. Will anything break the deadlock?
Number 1.
The 20-point plan developed by Steve Witkoff with Jared Kushner is one of the most elegant pieces of diplomacy we can remember in recent years.
Yes, Ambassador Michael Oren. On the precipice of peace, President Trump is preparing to fly to Egypt to sign a deal to bring the fighting to an end in Gaza and begin the rebuilding process. It's only phase 1, but it's already begun. Congressman Mike Lawler, we understand the IDF is beginning to move back to the yellow line within Gaza within 24 hours, and then the 72-hour time clock will start to release the hostages. Your thoughts about this plan?
Well, this is a remarkable achievement. Obviously, we want to see it come to fruition, but President Trump deserves all the credit in the world for this. This was due to his efforts, his vision, and his team really working with our Arab partners, with our greatest ally, Israel, to get this done. And the president made clear when he came into office that he was going to get the hostages home, and he is on the verge of getting that done. And, this is really just a momentous moment in the Middle East. The fact is that President Trump has been the greatest force for good in the Middle East and establishing peace and stability. You look back with the Abraham Accords, now Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner helping lead these negotiations to get this done. This is going to be a remarkable moment over the next 72 to 96 hours.
So what do the Palestinians get? 1,950 prisoners back within those 72 hours. They'll be put on buses. Obviously, the logistics matter. Out of which, 250 roughly have death sentences, which means they've killed before. And the big debate on Marwan Barghouti, I guess he is the person that is probably the highest profile prisoner. But so far, the Israelis have said, we're not letting him out. There's blood on his hands.
No question. And, obviously this is a very difficult negotiation. It's why it required so many of our Arab partners to be involved. And, long term, we're going to have to make sure that there is accountability here. There cannot be backsliding. Obviously, the threat against Israel remains, and we need to ensure the safety and stability within the region and ensure that Israel does not face these continued threats from terrorism, which is why Hamas can never remain in power, why the Palestinian Authority long-term cannot be in power. And so, we are at the beginning of what is going to be a very long process, but I think this is a tremendous step forward. And, look, Brian, the reality is we can either make progress or we can continue down this path. And I don't think anybody wants this to continue.
Yeah, I want to talk about the shutdown and how it's related, but I want you to hear Dave Ignatius, who knows a lot about that region. He said the first phase is tough, but the next phase is tougher. Cut 9.
The next phase is going to be difficult because Hamas essentially has to agree to surrender, has to agree to give up its weapons. Hamas fighters who give their weapons will get amnesty, allowing a kind of calm to return to Gaza. But the final terms, where Israel will withdraw to, exactly who will run Gaza, whether Hamas can be held to President Trump's demand that they play no role whatsoever in the future governance of Gaza is still remains to be seen.
So that's just it. The next phase, they have to decommission their weapons while giving up their rockets.
No question about it, and that obviously is going to be the more difficult endeavor here. But this is why I've always said the fastest way for this to end was for the hostages to be released and Hamas to surrender, and that's essentially what this deal will do. But it is complex, and that's why having our Arab partners at the table is vital. You can't get this done if there is not full cooperation within the Middle East. President Trump, by going to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE earlier this year, the engagement with numerous leaders across the Middle East, including Erdogan in Turkey, this is vital if we're going to get this done. And I think you're seeing not only diplomacy in action, but you're seeing a real effort towards peace and prosperity in the Middle East, which, if we look back historically, it's never happened like this before. So this is obviously a momentous moment, but it also obviously is fraught with concern. The old adage, trust but verify, and I think that's where it is going to be critical to hold people to account.
See if there are such things as Palestinian technocrats, because they're supposed to do the rebuilding. So I want to bring you to a confrontation you had yesterday intentionally with the Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Let's listen to some of it. Cut 35.
Why don't we sign on right now?
Did your boss Donald Trump?
You can easily extend the ACA right now.
Did your boss Donald Trump
He's
give
not
you?
my boss.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. And by the way,
so let me ask you a
why
question.
did you vote to
Let me
shut
ask
the
you a
government
question.
down? No,
Make
it's
yourself
sad.
relevant.
It's sad. You could
It's
easily sign on to
You're
this.
embarrassing yourself
You could
right
sign
now.
on to this. The only
You're
embarrassment here is you.
You're not going to talk to me and talk
and
over me
non-New York residents
because you don't want to
getting
hear what I have to say.
Oh, I'm listening.
So why don't
Go
you
ahead.
just keep your mouth shut?
So what happened?
Hakeem Jeffries had a complete and utter meltdown. He was yelling, stuttering, stammering. He couldn't answer one single question. And I went there to make the point that, look, if you want the health care subsidies that were put in place during COVID extended, I'm on a bill along with 14 Republicans and 11 Democrats to extend this by a year. Why won't you sign on to this bill if you're so serious about doing this? And this isn't for show. Sign on to a clean one-year extension. And he just wouldn't do it. And obviously, look, Democrats have shut the government down for one reason and one reason only. They're petrified of AOC, Zohran Mamdani, and the radical left. You look at, I asked him in that conversation, when are you going to endorse Zohran? Why are you so scared? What is it that you're waiting on? Why won't you condemn his blame the Jews statement on October 7th? And he had no answers. He just refused to even acknowledge anything because they're just petrified. And it's really it's embarrassing for somebody who professes to be the Democratic leader. I mean, good grief. He doesn't even hold Nancy Pelosi's purse, given the way he comported himself yesterday.
And by the way, she's a shell of herself. Whatever she was, she's not that anymore. She can't even get a line out. Here's more. Cut 36.
I voted for a clean CR to keep the government open and funded. You voted to shut it down.
You're embarrassing yourself right now.
Yeah, leader, with all due respect, you're the one.
Why are you playing yourself?
You're the one who actually voted to shut the government down.
Actually, that's not true.
It's sad. You voted to shut the government down.
Do Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the president?
Right, and you're smart enough to know that you need 60 votes in the Senate, right?
Is that right? No.
Do you need 60 votes in the Senate or no?
Were 60 votes needed to pass your one big ugly bill?
Reconciliation, which you did with the IRA, and boy, that really reduced inflation.
Are you trying to elevate yourself because you're afraid you're about to lose re-election?
No, I'm not going to lose re-election. You spent $42 million last cycle. You didn't do that great.
I've indulged you. I've given you your 15 minutes of fame.
You haven't answered any of the questions.
You're a complete and total embarrassment.
Yeah.
You're embarrassing yourself in your district right now, and you're going down to defeat next year.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's wrong about the defeat, and you're probably going to have an easier time this time. But have you ever had a confrontation like that with him before?
Actually, on the House floor a few weeks ago, I went up to him about his hypocrisy on redistricting, because New York did mid-decade redistricting last year at his behest. And he's out there screaming and yelling about, gerrymandering. But meanwhile, New York did it twice. And so I called him out on it, and he had a meltdown on the floor telling me, oh, you know more than I do. You know more than I do. You think you know more than I do. Who are you? Who are you? You know, he's very arrogant, condescending, thinks who he is. I mean, I'm sorry, bro. We're all elected by 780,000 people. You're no more important than any other member. You're one of 435, and your vote counts just as much as mine.
True, but you didn't stop there. My Speaker Johnson seemed to be confronted by his senator from Arizona, and you joined in.
All due respect, you voted multiple times to keep the government shut down, okay? The Republican members from Arizona voted to keep the government open. So don't sit here and try to lecture us about whether or not we did our job. We did our job. You did not.
Well, you're not doing your job right now.
Oh, you mean the bill that I'm signed on to extend it? Oh, yeah, cute, right, because you know what? We actually have put forth legislation to do it.
So set the scene there. What was going on yesterday?
Well, I had just finished a interview, and I was outside the speaker's office, and Ruben Gallego and Mark Kelly came up to do a little gaggle outside the speaker's office. And so I was standing on the side, and then the speaker came out and started answering their questions and rebutting their talking points. And, you know, ultimately they were trying to accost them. So I jumped in, as any New Yorker would, and called them out on their nonsense. The fact is, House Republicans passed a clean CR nearly 3 weeks ago to keep the government funded and open, to pay our troops, to pay our Border Patrol, to ensure that Americans reliant on WIC or SNAP have the funding and resources that they need. Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats are standing in the way. Ruben Gallego and Mark Kelly voted no multiple times to keep the government open. So when they're bashing their Arizona Republican colleagues, the fact is Arizona Republicans in the House voted to keep the government open. And I pointed that out. And then they're talking about, you know, Epstein and trying to make it all about that and talking about protecting pedophiles. The fact is the Trump administration is the one that prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein, number one. Number two, House Republicans on the Oversight Committee have released over 30,000 documents. They're in the middle of going through the records of the Epstein estate. That is a result of our work and our approval. This whole argument about the discharge petition is absurd on its face. The fact is, Joe Biden was in charge for 4 years. Democrats said absolutely nothing about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
They said absolutely nothing about the people that were involved in his crimes. I have said.
What do you think Ro Khanna cares about Jeffrey Epstein? Why does he suddenly care? What about Tom Massey? Where were they for 10 years?
Well, Ro Khanna is angling to run for president. So this is all about elevating himself. He said nothing for 4 years, and I called him out on that in an interview, and he just said, well, you know, it wasn't an issue until Donald Trump made it an issue. This is all they know. All they know is Donald Trump. They're a joke, and it really is embarrassing for our country. They're not serious about addressing the problems facing this country.
So Chuck Schumer just has come out and say every day gets better for us, for Democrats, the longer the shutdown lasts. Does that really how does that make people feel who are missing paychecks, military, who are not getting paychecks, air traffic controllers? And Schumer says it gets better for us every day. What's wrong with him?
Think about that. Look, this is what happens when you've been in office for 50 years. You've never held a job outside of government. You're entirely reliant on taxpayer-funded paychecks. You are completely oblivious to the impact of these decisions on the American people. And the fact is, Chuck Schumer just doesn't care. Chuck Schumer is petrified of a primary from AOC, and that is why he is doing this. That is why he shut the government down. He wants to show the radical left that he's fighting back against Trump. He's now doing videos on Capitol Hill cursing. You know what? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Chuck Schumer is the biggest schmuck in Washington, and it's time for him to go after 50 years in elected office. 50 years. Go home.
Right. Listen, I'm not going to push back on that, even though I'd be a better host if I did. I think it's absolutely done. It would be great for somebody to have the guts to at least stand up to your socialist mayoral candidate who's a radical leftist, but instead he does nothing, which means he does something. That means you're kind of endorsing. Lastly, Mike, do you think by any chance, with the president leaving the country and knowing that usually presidents come in and will orchestrate the end of a shutdown, there's no chance of that happening? He's going to be leaving the country in the next couple of days. What does that do for the shutdown? Do you think that people, both sides might go, this is historic, maybe we go back to work for 3 weeks?
Well, think about that. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have shut the government down, and President Trump is negotiating Middle East peace. All right, that's the dichotomy here. That's the difference. They're playing politics. President Trump's trying to solve an international crisis that resulted in the deaths of Americans. Americans were killed on October 7th, and these guys are playing, tiddlydinks in Washington, D.C. The bottom line is it's time to open up the government. Chuck Schumer should do so today. Get on the Senate floor, vote yes, open up the government, and let's get back to work. He's
in a battleground district, and he's always doing battle. Congressman Mike Lawler with the fireworks. Thanks so much, Congressman. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate
it. He's with the 17th. Back in a moment. Joining us now is Jack Ciattarelli, running for governor of New Jersey and storming from behind very strongly. Jack, first off, your reaction. I know you're focused on your debate, and I don't blame you and all the issues of New Jersey. That's got to be. But it's hard not to notice something historic happening like what's happening in the Middle East, isn't it?
This is historic, and we tip our cap to the president for taking a leadership role here. Peace is long overdue, but most importantly, the release of the hostages.
Absolutely, and hopefully they're going to be back soon. Your debate last night, how do you think it went?
I thought it went very, very well, and pointing out the differences between the two candidates. Once again, we got generalities, platitudes, and lies from my opponent, and we called her out on it each and every time. But I thought you saw a real act of desperation when she lied about my private sector career and accusing me of having killed personally 10,000 people. Talk about a desperate tactic by a desperate candidate.
In what respect? I must have missed that.
She was making mention of the fact that as a medical publisher, I was a partner of some of the leading academic medical centers in the country, and we did continuing medical education programs for doctors. And she's claiming because some of those dealt with pain management as a topic, that I was the reason for the opioid epidemic across New Jersey, and that in so doing, I personally responsible for the loss of 10,000 lives.
Here is Mikey Sherrill talking about you and putting down people who work in public service. Cut 43.
You know, my opponent denigrates public service at every turn. He said law enforcement shouldn't get the pay they get because there's a lot more dangerous jobs out there where people make less. He's voted against our pension system in the past. Again and again, he puts down people who serve the public. I'm proud of my service at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm proud of my service in the U.S. military, and I'm proud of people who serve. And as governor, I'm going to make sure I have their backs.
Your follow-up was?
No, I pointed out the fact that this is somebody who's endorsed Mondami, and Mondami's endorsed her. You couldn't have a more anti-police potential mayor of New York City than Mondami. This is somebody who voted to get rid of qualified immunity for local police, which is the bedrock of the protection that enables them to do the job that they do, and also that I'm the only one endorsed by police unions across the state because she's not pro-police and because she's talked about reappointing our current attorney general, who's been the most anti-police attorney general in our state's history.
Has she ever answered the question of why she was kicked out of college, why she was not allowed to walk after graduation?
She's given us an explanation, but I will tell you it's a lie. What she has said is the reason why she was punished at the Naval Academy, not being allowed to walk at the graduation, not having her name listed in the commencement exercise program, is because she refused to turn in classmates who were cheating. That's not true. And so we believe she either cheated herself or she lied to the investigators. All she has to do is approve the release of her disciplinary records to come clean and be transparent with the people of New Jersey as to why she was punished at the Naval Academy. You know, Brian, she's built her entire political career upon this Naval Academy experience and serving in the military. We salute her military service, as I do my Army captain's son, but she needs to come clean with the state of New Jersey as to why she was severely punished at the Naval Academy.
So you're saying you don't know if she's telling the truth or not because the records aren't out there. You don't know if it's worse or than the cheating scandal, right? You just know that Correct. She wasn't allowed to walk and she was involved somehow. She will not release the details.
Right, and if what she is saying is true, then why would you hesitate in releasing your disciplinary records? The disciplinary records would then confirm what it is that she's saying, that she wouldn't turn in her classmates. The honor code at West Point says this: you shall not cheat, you shall not lie, and you will not tolerate those who do. That's not the honor code at the Naval Academy. You don't necessarily get punished for not turning in a classmate. All it says is you will not lie. And so we believe that she's not telling the truth as to why she was severely punished.
So here she is talking about the number one issue for people of New Jersey, and that is energy costs, utility costs. Cut 44.
I constantly hear about this from voters. So that's why on day one, I'm declaring a state of emergency on energy prices, freezing rate hikes. I'm going to take on the PBMs. Those are those middlemen that can drive up drug prices up to 10 times, driving down your health care costs. And I'm going to ensure that I'm taking on those landlords that are colluding to drive up your rental prices. So housing, health care, utility costs, immediately get to work driving down your costs. And quite frankly, we know my opponent won't do it because his number one donor is somebody who's actually under investigation for driving up those rental costs. So I'm going to continue to fight for New Jerseyans, and my opponent just won't.
Do those sound like solid programs?
They are not. In fact, her energy plan, there are 77 incumbent Democratic legislators in New Jersey, 52 of which are on the ballot this year. Not one has embraced her illegitimate and not feasible energy plan to lower electricity costs. Even the governor, a member of her own party, was on TV and said, I don't think you can do that. Listen, it's one lie after another. He doesn't understand New Jersey. The way to get our electric rates down is to pull out of RGGI. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is a carbon tax policy that has failed New Jerseyans. I could save $300 million to $500 million a year for homeowners, tenants, and businesses by pulling out of RGGI. And all of our other proposals are really, really razor thin, lack specifics, and it's all about generalities and platitudes out of the Congresswoman.
So this morning we had a voter panel that watched your debate, and your debate was up against the Phillies game for Southern New Jersey, big Phillies fans there, and the Yankee game. So it's not easy. So a lot of people are going to be watching the clips back. We had a voter panel that watched the debate. They came in, and here's what they said.
After watching the debate, did it change any of your minds? If it did change your mind watching the debate, raise your hand. So it had no impact. All right.
So, they had some nice things to say. Some thought that Mikey Sherrill was better. But did you need to score a knockout? Do you think you had a knockout last night and we just picked three panelists that didn't reflect that? Or do you feel as though there's enough time to close the gap further?
Brian, there are 4 polls that have this as a dead heat, if not me, with a 1-point lead. There are a couple polls that have me down by 5 to 7 points. Those are the same polls that had Kamala Harris winning New Jersey last year by 20-plus. She only won by 6. Those are the same polls that had me down by 12 points with 2 weeks to go last time. We lost by only 3 points. The fact that I have the endorsements of prominent Democratic elected officials around the state says that all the energy is on our side, the momentum is on our side. I'm telling you, in comparing this to 21, when I thought we were going to win, this time I know we're going to win. The energy across the state has been electric.
But, Jack, the one thing you say, for example, I don't care what you think of Trump. Trump's not going to win in California, and he's not going to win in New Jersey. So Trump says he's got my full endorsement. And you were asked, where are you different? And you're different when it comes to windmills, right?
Different from my opponent or different from Trump?
Trump.
Listen, I'm very grateful for the fact he's put a temporary halt on wind farms off the Jersey Shore. I'm concerned that he's approved the wind farm off of the Empire Wind Farm off of Long Island. And so we hope that doesn't lead to him changing his mind on the temporary halt off the Jersey Shore. We do not want those wind farms. We think it ruins the ecology of our ocean, which is critically important to recreational and commercial fishing, which is a very significant component of our state economy. Not to mention, it's just not a good source of energy. It's not reliable, and it's very, very expensive. There are other ways that produce energy here in the state of New Jersey. And so, but he has been very good to New Jersey in other ways. He's beaten up on the New York Democrats over congestion pricing, but most of all, the big, beautiful bill. I mean, this thing raises the property tax deduction on your federal tax return to $40,000. That's critically important to New Jerseyans who pay the highest property taxes in the nation. It doubles the child care tax credit for families with young children. It doesn't tax tips, overtime, and Social Security. And it provides a magnificent tax credit for those who send their kids to private school. And my opponent voted no. All those things add up to anywhere to a $4,000 to $5,000 savings for the average middle-class family.
Going into the election without Trump's endorsement last time, where do the polls have you?
Well, the polls at the end, our polls had it as a dead heat. The polls that showed a difference were the ones that came out of our universities, which usually don't do a very good job of investing in necessary money to get the right kind of sample size. Brian, I'm telling you, we're right where we need to be with regard to the polls. And let's not forget one thing. Trump lost New Jersey in 2020 by 16 points. I lost 12 months later by 3. I outperformed Glenn Youngkin in Virginia that year. Okay? 4 years later, Trump loses New Jersey by 6 points. He improved by over 10 points. That was the single largest improvement of the 50 states. Now, no, he didn't win New Jersey. But guess what? 10 points is the equivalent of about 300,000 people that feel differently about Donald Trump today than they did back in 2020.
And right now, how many Democratic mayors have endorsed you?
We've gotten the endorsement of 4 different Democratic mayors, a couple of former mayors, and also county commissioners across the state. And I will tell you, there's a whole lot of others that have just told me very privately, Jack, we're with you. We need a change. They realize she's just a continuation of Phil Murphy's failed policies, Murphy 2.0.
And Murphy, she said that you would give Murphy a B and how he's done over these 8 years. What about you?
Oh, my goodness, Brian, it's an F. It's been a failure across the board. The affordability crisis because of property taxes and monthly electricity bills is all on him. The public safety crisis, the spike in nonviolent crime because we've handcuffed our police. We're going to let them do their job. The public education crisis because they watered down the public school curriculum. We've slipped from 2 to 12 on the national report card. The overdevelopment crisis in our suburban communities because of all this social engineering with this high-density housing, taking Garden right out of the Garden State. It's been failure after failure after failure. His signature issue, cannabis, even the rollout of that has been a total failure. Ask the minority communities all across the state that he told them it was all about social justice. I mean, the whole thing's just been an enormous failure.
And people of New Jersey deserve better. I don't think Mikey Sherrill's is I think she's one of the weakest candidates that I have seen. And they thought she was just going to roll to a victory. And I read in Axios a couple of days ago, a Democratic strategist says, basically her message is, isn't Trump really bad? And haven't they learned that that's not going to fly anymore? And soon it's not going to not even make any sense.
Yep. I mean, her whole campaign is based on a stack of lies about me, disdain for Donald Trump, and she can fly a helicopter. Is that what's going to fix New Jersey?
Not yet.
Come on.
I don't think so.
And listen, she's not even from New Jersey.
And you have generations that have had businesses there, right?
We have. The Ciattarellis have been here for 100 years. 3 generations of us have all been business owners, job creators, and have all achieved our American dream right here in New Jersey. And unlike my opponent, I don't need the job. Unlike my opponent, I don't want to be senator. I don't want to be vice president. I don't want to be president. I just want to fix the state I love.
All right. Jack Ciattarelli against Mikey Sherrill in the backstretch after their final debate last night. Jack, best of luck.
Brian, thank you.
Why don't we sign on right now?
Did your boss Donald
Trump? You can easily extend the ACA right now.
Did your boss Donald Trump
He's
give
not
you
my
permission?
boss.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. And by the way,
so let me ask you a
why
question.
did you vote to
Let me
shut
ask
the
you a
government
question.
down? No,
Make
it's
yourself
sad.
relevant.
It's sad. You could easily sign on to
You're
this.
embarrassing yourself
right now. You could sign on to this. The only embarrassment here is you.
You're not going to talk to me and talk
and
over
non-New
me
York residents
because you don't want to hear what I have to say.
Oh, I'm listening.
So why don't you just keep your mouth shut?
Well, that's what he has to say. Keep your mouth shut. Trey Gowdy joins us now. Trey, how much do you miss being in Congress after hearing that lovely exchange in the halls?
I did not miss it even before Lawler and Hakeem got into that little scrum. I'd rather work with Brian Kilmeade than anybody that's currently in the House.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing what's going on, but I think the tempers are boiling over. I mean, that went on, and there was another cut on that. And then there was another time in which Speaker Johnson was confronted by the senator from Arizona, and then Mike Lawler came in again. Let's listen.
With all due respect, you voted multiple times to keep the government shut down, okay? The Republican members from Arizona voted to keep the government open. So don't sit here and try to lecture us about whether or not we did our job. We did our job. You did not.
Well, you're not doing your job right now.
Oh, you mean the bill that I'm signed on to extend it? Oh, yeah. Cute, right. Because you know what? We actually have put forth legislation to do it.
And this is a continuing resolution to fund on the Biden funding levels. They want to add the health care into it because they care about people. So that was another time in which kind of the speaker was ambushed. So what does this tell you about decorum in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think anybody wins a shutdown fight, but you can sure lose one. And I was actually talking to a senator this morning, a Republican senator. They're going to keep teeing up votes It's hard to fight through the dominant media headwind. Republicans usually don't fare well in shutdowns, but there are three reasons that we are currently in this shutdown right now, Brian. Three reasons. AOC. Those are the three reasons. Schumer knows that he is going to be primaried by AOC, so he sends out these cringy videos. I mean, people his age should not be using social media. Literally,
I know.
I called the FCC and filed a complaint. It was so cringeworthy. That's why we're shut down. I had Mike on Sunday night, and I've talked to Mike since then. Literally, this is a continuation of the status quo. What was good enough 2 weeks ago is now not good enough for them. You're in the minority, guys. What do you think we're going to give you? What did you give? Here, I'll prove that I'm fair. I knew that President Obama was never going to sign the repeal of something called Obamacare. I knew that was never going to happen. Guess what, guys? We are not going to treat you like you won the last election when you did not.
And they're trying to unwind some of the big, beautiful bill, and they're trying to get it back to pre-pandemic levels. That now they let people in. They were 400% over the poverty level, making six figures, get Medicaid. That's not what it was meant for.
Nope. But Republicans have always struggled, not through their fault. I mean, look, you've been in D.C., the headwind walking around the halls of Congress, which is why I tell my friends, you got to get out. You got to get out and go back home. Politico, The Hill, all those D.C. rags. I mean, it is rare for Republicans to get a fair deal in a shutdown. But under these facts, when we are offering you a continuation of the status quo, Schumer is going to be primaried to the left, and he knows that, and that's why we're doing this.
So he came out yesterday or today, and he said, the longer this goes on, the more we're winning, the better we do. Really? Is he that dumb? There's people that aren't getting paychecks in the military. You know, the people that aren't getting paychecks, air traffic controllers, who doesn't seem to want to go to work anymore. Now he says the better we do, the longer it goes on.
Go back and look at those old clips of what he had to say about shutdowns in the past. Like, there's never a good reason to not pay soldiers, law enforcement, even your staff. Look, senators, for the most part, members of the House, not all, but most of them are people of wealth. Staff are not. And you got to keep working. So, look, I don't know that you can win a shutdown, but you can sure lose one. Republicans have been pretty good in their messaging, but they got to keep it up because the media kind of bias is to blame Republicans for a shutdown. The more Thune makes them vote, the more they vote no. I think they picked up, 3 Democrats last time they voted? My Senate friends tell me they're just going to – here's the silver lining if there is one, and I don't think there is one, but they are moving tons and tons of confirmations because they got nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's true. They got a whole bunch of people through, including getting Herschel Walker to the Caribbean as an ambassador. So he gets to get out there and have some fun. That used to be a cushy job, but now that actually could be busy because of Venezuela and how the drug trafficking is going through the Caribbean. So it looks like Mike Waltz is in place from a few weeks ago. So that's going to be a huge asset. So, Trey, do you believe the president leaving town to sign this peace deal and the magnitude of what he's doing? He's not going on an economic trip. It's not a G20. It is a historic peace deal. And we think he's going Tuesday. So without a president in the middle of this, out of the country, what happens to the shutdown?
Well, I think, number one, you know this as well as I do, Donald Trump is never inaccessible. I was texting with him at 11:30 last night. He is never inaccessible. And I do think that what is happening in the Middle East is historic, and I don't think it would have happened without him, and also give credit to Marco and Witkoff and Jared Kushner and others. If there's first of all, I think the Republican position is we're not negotiating with the minority party. Y'all lost. We're not undoing what we just passed. We're not adding $1 trillion for healthcare subsidies for people that are not indigent. We're not doing that. So why would he need to be around? I will say this. He's always open to a deal, and he's a phone call away. He is more accessible Brian, honestly, they're some of my childhood friends. They're harder to get on the phone than Donald Trump.
I know he was texting with Jake Tapper, too, and people were saying, how could he do that? Well, Jake Tapper has to understand at one point you could be a critic every day, but what other president, after the way he's been treated by and the way he soft-pedaled President Biden, would be texting you back to make your show better? Nobody. But they don't seem to appreciate that.
I think he's wired. People that don't know him don't know this and don't believe it. He is wired to be generous. Now, when you hit him, he's going to hit you back harder than you hit him. But his default is to be a generous, gracious person. That is his default.
I know. That's the person I know as well. I think they're going to realize when he's out of office that your description's accurate. They're just not capable of doing it now. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the first defectors. Now she's doing CNN, talking about the need to get health care costs under control, that her family's premiums are going up. But a bigger story is in November, when everyone gets their new premiums for the year, most of them will be going up. And Democrats want to make sure everyone knows it's Republicans' fault. And what they're going to say is whatever the health care costs are, the healthcare costs have everything to do with what they should be at because they were pre-pandemic levels, yet we were still subsidizing as if the pandemic was still happening. And also, does this underline what you fought against, and that is Obamacare? Isn't that proving to be an epic fail?
Yeah, I mean, the whole Obamacare, keep your doctor, nothing's going to change. We do need to reform our healthcare delivery system, whether it's litigation cost, whether it's the freedom. I mean, look, we've been fighting this battle for 20-something years now. I mean, on the one hand, I'm really, really proud of our healthcare system. I don't want the one that Canada has. I don't want the ones that the Nordic countries have. But the cost is, I mean, most folks get it from their employer. So, but if you're making over $100,000, we got to look at why the premiums are going up, and that kind of feeds into the overall health narrative. What drives up the cost? I mean, we're living longer, obesity, so what we eat, smoking, all the things we enjoy in terms of freedom. But that's a broader conversation. The conversation right now is about whether the federal government should subsidize health care. And I think the conservative response to that is it is a state matter. That would be the conservative response, a la Medicaid.
I hear you. And I think, obviously we need a mature conversation, not a political conversation when it comes to health care and what the costs could be down and a restructuring has to take place. But throwing money at it when it takes 2/3 of our budget already, along with Social Security, is not the way to do it. No matter what you do on non-discretionary spending, we're never going to be close to balancing a budget that now we're, I guess, over $1 trillion each year over budget. We're never going to get there unless we can get rid of
that. I'm so glad you said that, Brian, because I just don't think people can get their heads around this. If we zeroed out discretionary spending, literally spent nothing, we would still run a deficit for this year because of what we call mandatory spending, interest on the debt, Medicare, Social Security. So there are systemic, look, when Social Security went into existence, the life expectancy for an African-American man was that you would be dead before you drew your first benefit. Thank the Lord we are now living longer. I mean, I think women, their life expectancy is in the late 80s. So you're talking about, I just bumped into a friend of mine who owns his own business. Today's his birthday, and he said, thank God next year I get Medicare. Well, look, I mean, he's paid into it. He's entitled to it. But I mean, I'm not indigent. Maybe I ought to be paying more for my Medicare. So we got to have a mature conversation, but you can't do it because then you start pushing the Speaker of the House off a cliff or him pushing a senior citizen off a cliff in a wheelchair, and that's what passes for debate. And the last Republican that tried to take on mandatory entitlements was Paul Ryan, and they ran ads of him literally pushing a grandmother off a cliff, and Barack Obama sat there and perpetuated the myth. So no one wants to have the conversation that you just raised, which is we're going to always be mired in debt until we deal with mandatory spending.
I hear you, and that's going to take some, people got to, if we could find a way to pay down the debt, we pay less interest, and that could go a lot to doing other things that we want to do. But Trey, let me bring you first before I let you go, and then promo your show. James Comey, the strength of the case, I understand it. You could disabuse me of this thought, that we really don't know the case against James Comey, that only the grand jury does and the prosecutors do. We do not know everything they have against him. Am I under the right assumption?
No, you are. Once again, you are correct. And I'll prove it to folks. So I've talked to Todd Blanche, and Pam alluded to this, A.G. Bondi, when she was before the Senate. So what we know is the video exchange between Cruz and Comey, and we know that Andy McCabe would make a terrible witness. Those are two things that we know. No decent prosecutor is going to go to court with only that. So I had Todd Blanche on the show about a week ago, and he can't comment on an ongoing case, which handcuffs him. But he did allude to the fact that the FBI, if you think that's all they have, then you're crazy. Now, is it enough? Look, it is hard to convince 12 people beyond a reasonable doubt of anything this day and age. It is hard. Being a prosecutor is hard. Getting all 12, 11 out of 12 doesn't do it. All 12. Having said that, they have more than the video and more than Andy McCabe, who will not make a good witness, or else they would not have gone forward. That does not mean that you're going to get a conviction. But the standard for charging someone is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's probable cause. And clearly they have it because a grand jury returned 2 counts on him. I don't know what's going to happen in trial. He's got a good lawyer. I'm sure there'll be good prosecutors. It'll be up to 12 people in the Eastern District of Virginia. But the notion that he shouldn't be charged, or the guy who was on stage in a book tour admitting that he treated Donald Trump differently from the way he would have treated Barack Obama, is now worried about selective prosecution? Are you kidding me?
I know. And he said that at the 90-second why, and he got a big laugh out of saying that.
Yes.
And he does. I mean, he's very proud of what he's doing, and he's just saying this does not seem normal. Think about how many lives have been ruined: Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, Peter Navarro. A lot of these people's lives have been ruined because they would look to turn on Trump.
Papadopoulos.
Oh, sure.
Page.
Yeah.
How about Hope Hicks? Hope Hicks drug in there, having to spend an afternoon with Adam Schiff itself is a violation of the Eighth Amendment. But for the way he treated her and Trump family members, I was in the room for all of it. So I was talking to Devin last night, who I give a ton of credit. Yeah. Devin is the one who saw this a decade ago. It's been a decade, Brian. It has been a decade. And people forget. Now the left loves Jim Comey. People forget this is the same Jim Comey that gave Hillary Clinton the questions before he interviewed her and decided he wasn't going to charge her before he interviewed her. And now you're worried about selective prosecution. No one engaged in it more than you did, Comey.
Yeah, but he'll never admit to that. He'd feel bad for you for bringing it up.
Because he's right and we're all wrong, and he wrote a book about morality and all that. Now, he's Icarus. He literally is the Greek figure Icarus. He thinks that he's flying really close to the sun. Whether or not a jury will convict him, history will. I can tell you that.
So, Trey, who's on? Have you figured out who's on Sunday? You're going to wait?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say Lindsey Graham's coming on. I'm really working on John Thune. So we're going to talk about crime. We got a good lineup. The problem is I am the opening act for a guy named Brian Kilmeade. Yeah. So Kilmeade is U2, and I'm a garage band nobody's heard of.
That
but
is
we
not
do
true.
Have good guests.
That humble act, we gotta get rid of that. Your ratings are through the roof. It's a much watched show. Hey Trey, thanks so much. 9:00 Eastern time. Make sure you check him out on Sunday
and contribute a week long. 10 o'clock for One Nation with Brian Kilmeade.
Right, and when we come back, I'll tell you exactly who's going to be on that show. Hey, we are back, and one of America's premier authors, certainly most successful and thought-provoking, is in studio now. A fantastic radio host, who has also unbelievable sports knowledge, who I think it was every Sunday, watch Sports Reporters with Mitch Albom. He's author of 8 #1 New York Times bestsellers. His first big one was Tuesdays with Morrie, made it a movie, the best-selling memoir of all time. And Mitch's latest book is called Twice, which is another deep-thinking book, which is certainly to be very successful, who's a great host on everything. So, Mitch, there's nothing you really can't handle. Also, in your spare time, you're also running an orphanage in Haiti.
Yeah, I'm trying to squeeze a few things into my life.
couldn't be a more challenging environment than Haiti.
Yeah,
right?
Haiti's a nightmare right now, and even just to get in, we have to fly to a city that's 150 miles from our orphanage, and then take a helicopter to get down. So the gangs are in terrible control there.
Didn't a congressman help get you out?
Yeah, we had to be airlifted out, and several people from Congress, thank goodness, got us out in the middle of the night. They were shooting at helicopters and everything, and we got airlifted out. And everyone said I'd be crazy to go back, but I was back about a month later.
Because these kids aren't numbers. They're people to you. These are people they're like your family.
Yeah, we have 60 plus kids that we take care of, and we have 18 of them in college here now on scholarships, 2 in medical school. But these kids have nothing. They come to us with nothing, and we have to help them. I mean, I wish America was a little bit more involved, honestly.
Right. I hope we get to that soon, because I'm actually doing some studying about the Louisiana Purchase. And we're talking about Haiti.
Is that your next book?
Yeah. Well, kind of. And one of the areas I'm focusing on is Louisiana Purchase. And you didn't realize, if the French didn't get so caught up in what we now know as Haiti, I think it was Santo Domingo, and they didn't get so annihilated by people rising up and wanting their freedom, the French might have said, I'm not giving up Louisiana. You're not going to have any deal to get New Orleans. But because they got so hung up and butchered in that conflict, all of a sudden, I realized, America would look different. How about that?
Yeah. So Haiti contributed. All right.
Absolutely. So you're also up for a Marconi, I understand?
Yeah. Okay. I have nothing to do with that, and that's crazy. I don't think I deserve that, but we'll see.
Well, you do. Obviously, you got nominated. So tell me the premise of Twice.
So Twice is, I wanted to write a book about people who always keep thinking the grass is always greener on the other side. So I created a story about a guy who discovers when he's a kid that he has the magical ability to do everything in his life a second time if he wants to. But he has to live with the consequences of his second try. He can't go back to the first one or whatever happens the second time, that's it. And he goes through his adolescence fixing his mistakes and his embarrassments with girls and all that kind of stuff. And then when he gets older, he finds out that there's one caveat to the power, and that is it doesn't work with love. So if somebody loves you and you decide you want to go try somebody else, go back in time and see if that other girl or whatever, then that first person can never love you again. That's it. They'll be in the world. You can talk to them, but that's it. And of course, he finds the perfect person, he thinks, and then he gets tempted and he has to make a very fateful decision with his power. So it's all about whether we think the alternative life that we imagine is better than the one we have.
What prompted this? Was it a conversation? Was it something you thought about?
Probably just getting older, and the older you get, and I'm sure you see this too, Brian, the more the people your peers start saying, I should have gone a different career. I should have married that girl from whatever, but they don't do it because it's too late in life to go change it. When you're young, if you're in your 20s and you say, I don't like this career, I'm going to go try that one. I don't want this partner, I'm going to try that one. But you reach a certain ages where the concrete starts to settle and you feel like, well, you just can't change anything. And then people start developing these regrets. But my thought process is, well, yeah, you could have taken that career, but that would have brought with it a whole other set of problems. Yeah, you could have married that other person, but you don't know what that would have led to, what comes after. So that whole idea about second chances is kind of floats around me, and I hear it all the time. And I tend to try to write books ever since Tuesdays with Maury that are what people are thinking about, issues that they ask themselves questions. I don't tend to write my books like, I have this great idea for a plot or a character. I think about the themes that people are talking about, and I try to create stories around those.
Because it really sells the story and the belief that people can see themselves in that story.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, I feel like you almost see it as a movie before it's a book, because all your books feel like they're movies. Yeah. Does it first you picture the dialogue and then you knock it down to a book?
No. First you think of the theme, then you think of. I always think of the ending because I want to know where I'm sailing to, and then you kind of create the story. But it's funny you say about a movie, because for the first time, this book was purchased for a movie before I finished the book. I mean, I don't even know how they got a hold of the early manuscript, but Netflix bought it and got assigned a director and a writer.
You're kidding.
It's already,
wow.
The script is almost done. I said to the screenwriter, you're putting out a script before the book is out. So it was, I guess it's an appealing kind of story.
Wow, are you thrilled by that?
Yeah, I really like the director and writer. His name Paul Weitz. He's the guy who did About a Boy and some of the other really great films. So, Yeah, I was thrilled by it. But I mean, usually they wait to see if a book is successful, and then they say, well, let's jump on the bandwagon. This one they did before it even came out.
So the Mitch Albom that was doing sports, do you feel like you're the same guy, the one who was worried if the Tigers were going to win and what the Yankees were going to, how much they're going to spend on their free agency? Does that seem like the same
Well,
guy?
I never worried about how much the Yankees were going to spend on their free agency.
But it would be a topic on the Sunday in the morning. Remember the first $1 million contract people were worried about? And
Well, that's kind of, Brian, why this book was kind of natural to me. I've sort of had a twice life, you know. For the first 37 years, that's all I did was sports. And you and I know, we go way back. Yeah. And I was 100 miles an hour, sports reporters. I lived up in Bristol for ESPN for 3 days a week and writing 5 columns a week. And then Tuesdays with Maury happened. And, you know, I wrote a book to pay my old professor's medical expenses. He was dying from Lou Gehrig's disease. You know, we met every Tuesday. It was supposed to be a tiny book. Nobody, I mean, most publishers told me to get lost. They weren't even interested in it. They printed 20,000 copies for the world, and I thought that would be it, and they'd be in the trunk of my car the rest of my life. And then all of a sudden it took off, and next thing I know, instead of people asking me who's going to win the Super Bowl, they're coming up and saying, my mother died of cancer, and the last thing we did was read Tuesdays with Maury. Can I talk to her about her? And you have that happen thousands of times, and you become a different person, and your interests become different, and you realize the kind of the grief and the suffering that's going on in the world and what people are into. So while sports kind of always remained a part of my life after that, and I still to this day write a sports column, not frequently, but my interests became much different, and I ended up getting involved in charity and then Orphanage in Haiti and a lot of stuff in Detroit. So no, I mean, I'm not the same person, but I don't think we should be the same person. And that's kind of the point of Twice. Everybody thinks it would be great to have a magic power to go back and undo something, but you already have that power. It's called the next minute of your life. And everything that you learned up to this point enables you to make a different decision in the minute that comes next.
do you have a personal mission of self-improvement, a conscience? I want to be better?
Totally. I want to be a better person. When I was younger, I wanted to be bigger. That's, I think, the difference between young and mature.
Right.
There's a big difference between old and mature. You know, you can be old and still be young. Yeah. But I think when you're young, you just want to be big, you know, and I want my name everywhere. And when you mature, you say, I want to be better.
Right, and that's where you're at now.
That's where I'm at.
And do you think in writing this book, do you learn things about like morals and character and things to that nature?
100%.
Because while you're writing, you're literally creating.
Yeah, 100%. Because, you know, the reason I made Love, for example, the caveat, is because I was kind of writing the book to my wife after 37 years that we've been together. I wanted her to know that I understood that love is not a basketball shot that you miss, that you want to go back and just make it and then fix everything. And love is like the first day, the 100th day, the 10,000th day, and everything that happens along the way is what you get. So yeah, it's true. You could say, well, gee, if I could have married that girl in high school, it'd be like so. But you're only imagining the first day, right? You're imagining the first date or the first time you sleep with them or the first whatever. You're not imagining 15 years down the pike or 30 years down the pike. But that is what a love relationship is, all the bumps along the road. So I think I even became, hopefully, a better appreciative husband by writing the book.
You also wrote in your last book about you adopted a child.
Yeah.
And then that child passes away, and then you put that story to paper.
Yeah, that was Finding Chica. It was a few books ago. She was one of our kids from Haiti. She had a brain tumor, and we adopted her. They told us she would be dead in 4 months, but we said, well, she's a fighter. You don't know this kid. You know, she survived the earthquake when she was 3 days old. So we traveled around the world with her, and she lived 2 years. And honestly, what's interesting, Brian, is she died, and we thought, well, that was our chance of being parents, you know, and at least we got the opportunity. And then 3 years ago, a little girl was brought to us who weighed 6 pounds, and she was 6 months old. And hadn't had anything to eat in her life but sugar water. She fit in the palm of my hand. Her eyes couldn't open. She couldn't make any sound. And we raced her home, and we put her on this nutrition program to try to feed her around the clock. And we prayed every week. We brought her to the doctor. We put her on the scale. Please gain an ounce, just an ounce, just an ounce. And that little girl is now our little girl.
No
you know?
way.
Yeah. We
How
have
old?
a 3.5-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's a pistol. Her name is Nadi, and she's the joy of our lives. So we got a second chance, just like this book Twice.
From Haiti?
From Haiti, yeah.
And was she in your orphanage?
Yeah, she was brought to our orphanage, yeah.
Wow. And do we know anything about our background? Or?
Not a lot. No, we don't know a whole lot about a lot of our kids' backgrounds.
Wow, that's incredible. So the people that come to you in Haiti, so you'll just say there's a need there, and will they have to stay there too in the orphanage? Like they don't come just for school.
If we say, no, they live there. If we say we're taking new kids, there's a line down the block of I have to say no to 10 kids for every one that we can say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they live with us. We take care of them. We get medical treatment. They go to school there, 4 hours in English, 4 hours in French. We have, they're fully fed, 3 meals a day. Everybody gets their own bed. These things in Haiti are not common for children. So it's a big deal, actually, if they can get into our place. But we obviously can't take everybody.
And I can imagine how much more money you'd have for the kids if you didn't have to pay for security.
Yeah, 24 security guards I have now ringing our place because of the gangs in Haiti. I mean, it's crazy. Why should an orphanage have to have 24 security guards?
Have you talked to the State Department about this at all?
I've talked to everybody.
And what do they say?
There's not much interest in Haiti. They don't have much to offer us in return.
Because you got to put a government in. I mean, there is no government, right?
Yeah. What I hear a lot is a lot of complaints about what happened after the earthquake and the Clintons and the money that went down. And I hear that a lot. Like, well, we gave money to Haiti before and it disappeared. And so, it's just a big black hole and so we don't want to fund it. But hey, you're a student of history. We occupied and ran Haiti for 15 years in the early 1900s. We wrote their constitution. Their money was in our bank. We have a history with this country, and they're right off our shores. I mean, if they had oil, if the Chinese or Russians were suddenly interested in it, we'd be down there in a heartbeat. But because that's not happening, we're just allowing people to tens of thousands of people are murdered down there by gangs, and nobody's doing anything about it. You can't go out in the street. Our kids haven't left our orphanage in 4 years, haven't gone outside because it's not safe to go outside.
The other thing is this thing called the United Nations a few blocks from here. I mean, if you talk about a humanitarian effort, that would be it. And I think they have money for security.
And all they do is just keep meeting and making suggestions and all that. The problem actually began when the United Nations left in 2017. They had been there after the earthquake. And they ostensibly were there to help rebuild the country. But when you see UN trucks going around and they have guns and whatever, the gangs don't act up. As soon as they left, there was a void. The gangs started rising, and now they run Port-au-Prince. And in many ways, they basically overthrow the country.
And they overthrew, didn't the...
They killed somebody killed the president.
Did the First Lady kill the president?
Well, I have no idea. Nobody's figured it out yet who killed him. But once he was gone, the power vacuum created this opportunity for these gangs, and they own 90% of Port-au-Prince. Can you imagine if 90% of New York, where we are right now, was under gang control? Our orphanage is in the 10%, thank God, that isn't under gang control yet, but we have bullets landing in our yard all the time.
So the UN would have to come in guns a-blazing. They'd have to come in looking to...
I don't know about guns a-blazing. Most of these gang members, more than half of them are under 17 years old. They're mostly just kids with guns, but because nobody else has guns in Haiti, the people who have the guns are running things. I think if you just sent down a peacekeeping force and went in there and they started trying to take back these neighborhoods that have been taken over by these gangs, they would quell it, and a lot of these gangs would run, they'd disappear. I don't think it requires an army, but it does require some kind of effort, and right now nobody's making that.
How much of your time is taken up with this?
I go every month.
Every month?
Yeah, for about a week.
And that's incredible. And you're able to balance things out and still write a sports column?
Well, I don't write very many sports columns, but once in a while, when I'm home in the other 3 weeks, and the people around me are very forgiving and allow me to, do this work and do the other work.
Lastly, are you worried about baseball?
As the sport or about the Tigers?
No, as a sport.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do think I think it's losing young people. I think football has just taken up all the oxygen in the room. I do think they made a good move with the pitch count thing and the clock to speed up the games, because they were on a death spiral before that.
Especially if you're covering them, you spend 5 hours.
And now it's funny, you go in the playoffs and we're back to 3.5 hour long games. It's like, what happened? During the season they were over in 2 hours and 10 minutes. But it's the nature of the game. I mean, I don't know how much you can do. You can't make it look like the NBA. But I think there'll always be a market for it, but it's not going to be the nation's pastime. As it
Right.
once
And
was.
and Mitch, you're not upset that the Yankees lost yesterday, for the record.
No, I'm not. I live in Detroit. We're still alive.
I know, absolutely, and doing it on a budget. Mitch Albom's got a brand new novel out. It's already going to be a movie. Netflix has bought it and wrote the script. It's called Twice. You got to pick it up, and I know you will. Mitch, congratulations on all this.
Brian, it's great to see you, man. Thank you.